All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools any entrepreneur can have in their arsenal, the company. Now, I know what you're thinking. You hear company and you probably picture, I don't know, a big, boring office building. But I want you to completely change that image. Think of it more like a legal supersuit for your business. Okay, so you have this amazing business idea, right? You're convinced it's going to change the world. You pour your heart, your soul, maybe even your entire life savings into it. But there's always that nagging question in the back of your mind, the one that's kind of terrifying to even think about. What if it fails? What happens if it all goes wrong? What do you really stand to lose? To really get what's at stake, let's make this super real. I want to tell you a story. I call it the risky samosa business. And trust me, it's a classic tale of what happens when a great idea runs into some very harsh legal realities. So let's meet our entrepreneur, Gurpreet. He's got this dream to start a samosa venture. And he does it the way a lot of people do. He starts a sole proprietorship. It's the simplest way to get up and running, right? He puts in 1 lakh of his own cash. And because he's a trusted guy, he even borrows 5 lakh from his students. He is all in. But then, disaster strikes. The business just doesn't work out, and it starts racking up some really heavy losses. Okay, so let's just do the cold, hard math here. After he sells off everything the business owns, the fryers, the counters, the whole setup, he's left with 2 lakh rupees. The problem is he still owes his students 5 lakh. So you can see where this is going. He's short. He's short by a massive 3 lakh rupees. And this is where the story gets absolutely devastating. To cover that 3 lakh business debt, Gurpreet had to sell his own house, his personal home. And you have to ask, why? How is that even possible? Well, it's because he was a sole proprietor. In the eyes of the law, there is absolutely no difference between Gurpreet the person and Gurpreet's samosa business. They are one and the same. And this right here is the crucial difference. It's everything. As a sole proprietor, the business is you. The business's debt is your debt. Your personal house is on the line. But if he had started a company, everything changes. The business is a totally separate thing. The debt belongs to the company, not to him. And that means his personal assets, they're safe. They're protected. That one single difference, you guys, is a total game changer. So you're probably wondering, how? How does a company actually give you this kind of protection? Well, it all comes down to a few key features. And honestly, they're so powerful, I like to think of them as a company's superpowers. Okay, superpower number 1. And honestly, this is the most important one of all. Limited liability. This is the direct answer to Gurpreet's nightmare. What it means is simple. As an owner, your personal responsibility for the business's debts is limited. It's limited to whatever you invested. So if the company goes under, sure, the creditors can take the company's assets, but they cannot touch your personal house, your car, or your savings. Your risk is capped. It's limited. So how is that even possible? How does limited liability work? It's all because of this really cool foundational idea. A company is a separate legal entity. In the eyes of the law, a company is basically treated like an artificial person. Think about that. It can do almost anything a real person can do. It can own property, it can take out a loan, it could even file a lawsuit, all in its own name. And the key part is, it's completely separate from its owners. It's like the law creates this invisible wall between the owner and the business. It basically looks at the two of them and says, "Hum dono hai alag alag," which just means we are separate from each other. And that separation, that legal shield, is what protects you. It's the absolute core of why this whole thing works. All right, the next superpower sounds like something straight out of a comic book. Immortality. Seriously, it's a legal concept called perpetual succession. See, you and I, we have a limited time on this planet, but a company, because it's this artificial person created by law, it can literally exist forever. The owners can come and go, they can retire, they can pass away. It doesn't matter. The company's life just keeps on going. And if you think that sounds crazy, just look at a real-world example like ITC Limited. This company was incorporated way, way back in 1910. The original founders, the first shareholders, they're all long gone. But today, more than a century later, the company isn't just surviving, it's absolutely thriving. That right there is perpetual succession in action. Now, this whole idea of a company being a separate person, it wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was actually cemented in court, in a legendary legal battle that really serves as the ultimate proof. So let's dive into what I call Salomon's landmark showdown. So here's the story, basically. There's this guy, Mr. Solomon. He sells his shoe business to a company that, get this, he himself created. A little while later, the company fails and goes into liquidation. Now, the other people who were owed money, the unsecured creditors, they were furious. They argued, hey, this is a sham. Salomon and his company are the same thing. Pay us first. But the court said, nope. They made a landmark ruling. The company is a separate legal person, period. And that meant Salomon, who had loaned his own company money, was legally a secured creditor and had the right to be paid back first. This case set the precedent for everything.
Okay, so now we get why a company is such a powerful idea. But what are the actual rules of the game? What governs all of this? Well, that brings us to the official corporate rulebook.
In India, every single company is governed by one massive piece of law, the Companies Act 2013. And when I say massive, I mean it. We're talking about 470 sections, 29 chapters. It's a huge, detailed rulebook that lays out every single thing from how you create a company to how you run it to how you eventually close it down. So, after all that, you might be wondering, what is the official definition of a company according to this huge act? Well, funny enough, it's a little bit circular. The law basically says a company is, well, a company incorporated under this act or any previous company law. You know, it's legally correct, but it doesn't really help us understand the bigger picture, and that's where a lot of confusion comes in.
So let's clear that confusion up right now. We need to understand the difference between the word company and a much broader term you'll often hear, body corporate. Okay, here's the easiest way to think about it. The word company, when we're talking about Indian law, is super specific. It means an entity created under the Indian Companies Act. Think Reliance Industries. That's a company. Now, body corporate is a huge umbrella term. It's much broader. It basically refers to any entity that has that corporate structure we've been talking about, that separate legal personality. So under that umbrella, you've got Indian companies for sure, but you've also got foreign companies, like an American company, and even things like LIC or SBI, which were created by their own special laws. So here's the key takeaway, the simple rule to remember. All companies are body corporates because they fit under that big umbrella. But, and this is the important part, not all body corporates are companies because they weren't all formed under India's specific Companies Act. It's exactly like how all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Same idea. So that brings us full circle. We've established that a company is, for all legal purposes, an artificial person. It has these incredible powers, right? It can own things, it can sign deals, it can even live forever. But that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to chew on. If a company is a person, can it also get in trouble? Can an artificial person commit a real crime? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.